Welcome in, everybody. We're glad you're here for our annual retiring faculty panel. This is something we do here at Mercersburg Academy, where we invite our retiring faculty to join us and share a little bit about their time here at the Academy. It's also fitting we do this during Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week, so we can show these people our appreciation for them. I'm being told that I cannot be heard. If other people are having that, can you also put that in the chat? That would be great. So looking for a little validation in the chat of whether I can be heard or not, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, others. Appreciate the help. So today I'm joined by three of our retiring faculty, and they have a combined 96 years of service to Mercersburg Academy. Today we're going to hear from Mr. Rahauser, Ms. Mufson, and Mrs. Rahauser a little bit about their experience here. So without that, I'd love to invite Mr. Rahauser to join me on screen. Tom, great to see you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Tom, we're going to start with you, and you actually graduated from Mercersburg Academy. So yeah. Why did you end up coming to the Academy, and what was that like as a student?
Well, as a student, it in many ways was I think similar to like it is now, although it was a bit more strict and a little bit more regimented in the early 70s. And I was here 2 years, and I was here, I think, mainly for two big reasons for me. One was because I really felt like I needed to become a better reader, a better writer. I needed to work on those skills. And I actually remember thinking pretty clearly about that when I came, and because I really hadn't developed those skills very well. And I was very fortunate when I came here to have some very good instructors, and they helped me with those two things by making me do an awful lot of reading and an awful lot of writing. But it was very, very helpful. And the second thing, I really enjoyed the athletic package that was here at that time, and was great. I was able to play soccer and basketball and baseball, and it was wonderful. I loved it. It was great.
That's fantastic. And we know you're an alumni of Franklin and Marshall and Lancaster, but you came back after being at college. And what kind of led to you becoming a faculty member here at the Academy?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story in some ways, and yet not all that interesting in some ways as well. I was doing some student teaching in my final year there, and I'd worked some summer soccer camps and that sort of thing throughout my time in college. And I was thinking I might want to teach, but I really wasn't looking to come back to this area. I'm actually from Chambersburg. I grew up very close to here. And I was thinking of maybe staying in Lancaster, Philadelphia, going somewhere different. And but as fate would have it, when I returned for a Christmas break, I still didn't have any kind of leads on any jobs of any sort. And my father, in his infinite wisdom, said to me, well, why don't you go up? At least you know who the head of the school is at Mercersburg. Perhaps he knows some people in Philadelphia or Lancaster, up in New England, who might need someone that's interested in teaching Spanish and maybe coaching. So I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And I needed a job. I mean, that was basically the reason that I came back. And so I came up and I talked to Mr. Bergen, who was the head of school at the time. And I asked him, I said, I was interested in teaching and coaching Spanish and coaching soccer. And he said, well, it's interesting, but our Spanish teacher and soccer coach just decided to leave here 3 or 4 days ago. So if you're interested, you could give us your resume. And the rest is pretty much history.
That's fantastic. That's really awesome. I forgot to mention, everybody, as we begin, if you have any questions for any of our panelists today, please make sure to throw them in the chat, in the Q&A, and we will answer those and get to those in a little bit. So That's fantastic, Tom. What an amazing twist of fate that just a chance encounter and came into 43 years of teaching in one place.
Yeah, it totally was serendipitous, completely.
That's wonderful. Well, let's bring on Laurie here for a second and hear a little bit about how Miss Mufson got her start in teaching and whatnot. Hi, Laurie.
Hey, Will, good to see you.
You too. So you actually, one of the things I love is when I was learning your story was you were still directing and acting while you were a teacher for many years. What led you to teaching instead of just performing or being involved in the arts through just directing and things like that?
Well, I was always interested in teaching, um, maybe partially because of my own unique learning style. But when I was in high school, I did an independent study in education with the associate head of school. And I got exposed to a lot of really interesting, progressive ideas around teaching. And when I was in college, you could not major or minor in education, but you could go through the certification program. So I got certified in secondary education in theater and English. And my very first job was I drove home from Wisconsin. The following Monday, I had an appointment at the Garrison Forest School. And the next day I was hired to create their academic theater program. So I always kind of had a balance between teaching and working professionally.
Wonderful. So unlike Mr. Rahauser, you're not from around here.
No,
And
I'm not.
how did you hear about Mercersburg Academy and wind up, on this plot of land in South Central PA?
Well, I had decided that it was time for me to leave the Washington, D.C. area. My husband had a book he wanted to write. And I thought, the best way to make that happen is I went to boarding school, my first job at a boarding school. We should go back to boarding school. We're going to get housing. We're going to get food. I loved having that depth of interaction with students, and he can write his book. And I was registered with a couple of different teacher placement agencies, and actually both of them, they actually fought over who actually sent me here in terms of who was going to get the little fee. And I remember driving up by myself from Washington, and don't think I had ever driven up into Pennsylvania this way, and driving onto the Mercersburg campus and going, gosh, this place is gorgeous. And I had the most wonderful day and a half of interviews. I actually stayed in North Cottage, had breakfast with Doug Hale. I had a late night with Rick Hendrickson that I think lasted till close to 11 o'clock because we had a late meeting after I did my duty in Tippett's, which was then girls. And it just felt totally right. And then there was like 4 months of waiting or maybe 3. And by the time Doug Hale actually called me, I had a bunch of different offers. And I had, everywhere I was going, I was also bringing my husband's resume, even though he had a book to write and he had a master's in English, because I felt like, there may be something that he wants to do somewhere. And so when Doug called to offer me the job here, he asked whether Jim was interested. So we came back up. And Jim met with Marilyn Larson and Joel Chase, both of whom one has passed on and the other is not here anymore. And by the time we left, Jim was going to be teaching one class, work with the newspaper, and we would both share advising and dorm duty in Fowl Hall, which was then boys. By the time school started, he had 2 honors classes, the Justice, Power, and Authority classes, and he had a ton of FAC kids in his classes. And one thing led to another, and this just became an amazing life and adventure for us as educators, as a couple, as building relationships with students that go back to our first years here.
That's wonderful. Did he ever write the book, or was it just kind of left after teaching?
Never wrote the book. He's written a lot of articles, but he never wrote the book.
Well, there's plenty of time with retirement.
Plenty, he just turned 80 this summer, so there's a lot of writing ahead of him.
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks, Laurie. Let's bring on Susan in here. Just a little bit about her in that way. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Will.
It's good to see you.
Hi, everyone.
So Susan, you are, right now you're in your office at the Rutherford Health and Wellness Center. And, I think most of us know you as the school counselor in this way. And so my first question is, what was appealing to you about counseling to get into it as a field?
Oh, well, I didn't always know what I wanted to do. In college, I thought I would really maybe want to be an art major because I really liked art. I still like art. But I ended up being a psychology major. And then I thought then that it would be really cool to be a psychologist. And I knew I would have to go to graduate school. And I really wasn't ready to do that right after college. But I did have those thoughts. And I think the work of a counselor is really about being in the here and now, being right in the immediate moment. And I always was liked that, to slow things way down and just be with people and listen. And I feel like I always have been sort of interested in and empathetic to sort of the conditions of being a human being. And painting and drawing and reading and walking and things like that slow things down for me too. So I think, that's how I sort of ended up in it. I did go to graduate school eventually and get a master's in mental health counseling with the support of the school. So that's kind of where it was serendipitous for me also.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I've never thought about the slowing down of being in a therapy session, like the slowing down of painting. I think that's really beautiful, that connection that those both provide in that way. That's a really cool element. I had no idea you were going to be an art major in college. So that's something to learn.
I didn't get to.
Yeah. Well, we, as you briefly alluded to just there with this being in the support of the school, unlike Tom and Laurie, you were already a member of our academy community when you came onto staff as being Tom's spouse and whatnot. So what was that transition like for you as coming from, Laurie, I'm still had a question for you. Or Susan, that's what I meant. Jeez.
Sorry.
You're fine. Not a problem. But your transition as to member to a faculty was different because you're already part of our community. So what was that like for you, and what kind of led to you coming on to the staff and faculty here at Mercersburg Academy?
Yeah, Tom, my husband Tom, was working here, had been working here for several years before we got married, and so when I came to Mercersburg, I didn't know that much about boarding schools, but I fell in love with it immediately, loved the community, and I always knew that I wanted to work with people somehow, mostly children, and I actually got a teaching certificate to teach elementary school, actually, and never ended up doing that. But I started to work full-time at Mercersburg after working part-time a little bit, and we were raising children, so I was wanting to be at home with the kids. But I started teaching a course called Human Development first at Mercersburg because I could just do that part-time, and I really enjoyed it and helped rewrite the program. It's now called a Wayfinder. But that was how I got started. And then I really wanted to, the school had a counseling department, counseling staff it was called at the time, and it was just a group of faculty members. Allison Stevens was on that. And the school always understood that students at this age really need some extra support sometimes outside the advisor role. And so I became a part of that group. And and really, really enjoyed it. I loved being around the energy of teens and hearing their stories. So that was, it took several years, but then, you know, I was just so interested in being part of a mission-driven organization and something larger than myself, and Mercersburg just was a wonderful place to be a part of all that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's so cool how you got to develop and transition in so many different ways to where you are now. Yeah, Miss Stevens just put in the chat that she misses those years of work. So
Yep.
good years to say the least. Well, Tom, I had another question for you, if possible. You know, you've worn lots of different hats here at the Academy, like most people do who stay for a long time, but you were the Dean of Students for 21 years. What did you enjoy about that position? What was that position like?
Wow. You know, I think the thing for me about that position was that I really enjoyed working with and being with the kids, the students. And it was a lot about making connections with them. And as I did that, and I don't know, I was always interested in them and their lives and the things that they would do. And I think that helped me to make connections and better connection. And as things went on, as I did it a few more years and began to get to know their parents and other siblings and that sort of thing, it just the whole idea or the whole experience just became broader and bigger and deeper. And that's basically it was about connections and making connections um, and that really was not just with the students and the parent, but also with the faculty as well, because you get to know the faculty a great deal because you're dealing with things that maybe they had issues with. And it was very, very interesting, very challenging. But it was, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I loved it because I think basically because of the connections that I was able to make with the students and the parents and the faculty at the time.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective to bring into it too, because I think at points people do focus on some of those challenging elements with that role, but to see that it's a lot about connections and making such a wide range of connections over time is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's right. I agree with that. I think that's what it was for me.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me.
Awesome. Laurie, I had a question for you about the Burgin Center, because I don't know if our students know that the Burgin Center was not around when you began here. And in fact, you know, you are so synonymous with the Burgin Center now, but you were actually intricately involved in that process of creating the Burgin Center. What was that like, you know, being a part of the designing and the building of that space?
It was really very exciting. And I mean, the entire arts faculty were involved in the process, but I represented the arts department at other more formal meetings, that we weren't just talking about our own space, like the dance space and what we're needed there and what do we have to have for studios. But I represented the whole department in the broader meetings with architects and planning and all sorts of things like that, even in fundraising. I remember then the director of advancement, Mary Carrasco, asked me to join her to meet Debbie Simon in New York to talk about a gift for this building that ended up with, and I really think it was her first big gift of all the things that she's given to the school since. Naming the Simon Theater was the result of that meeting and conversation with her. And so it was really exciting to think about what do we need? This is a building for doing and creating, and what are going to be the best things that we can offer so students are going to be able to work in a more professional, creative environment that's going to really support them. And I remember walking through the building, I guess it was May before we opened in September, and see, and it was the first time we were allowed in as they were building. The whole area was, fenced off. And so we'd seen the drawings, we'd seen what, mostly just a flat view, a top view of what the spaces were going to look like. And to actually be able to walk through the spaces and, oh, I now understand what these stairs meant like this in the drawing. And I remember they hadn't finished the floating stairs that go from the main level down to the lower level where you can see the dance studios. And I remember walking down the first flight and then that long part where you're getting to the second flight down, and then there was nothing. And in order to go down to see the studios down there, we had to go back up and outside and around. And I still, when I walk around the building, remember what it looked like when there weren't walls. It was so exciting to see something that you had envisioned and worked on in a very collaborative process actually take form and take shape and come to life. Yeah, so it was great.
And it almost feels like a different kind of directing where, it's so unique where usually as the director, you have to work with the stage that's in front of you, but you got the opportunity to actually create the stage, which has a lot of advantages when you're trying to do those things.
And it's really interesting that you say that, because I was going to say, it feels like the process when you are creating art, whether it's a dance composition or something 3D sculpture or a play, you have a vision and you're putting it together and it takes shape and then it comes to life. And so it was very much that way. And of course, also, walking in and going, oh, I thought this was going to be like this, or those should have been 7 inches, not 6, or, finding those things and learning the term value engineering. That was a really interesting experience too, for all of us. But this has been such, I am so privileged. I feel so privileged and blessed to have been able to work in a space like this that so supports our work, our collaborative work with students in an environment that could not be finer to inspire.
Yeah, we're very fortunate in that regard. Well, Susan, I know that you also were a part of kind of the founding of a program in that sense, and that you've really been involved in the school's mental health initiatives. Obviously not like with Laurie with the building of a building, but really developing a program. So what's it been like to help build that part of our school up over time and this space where students can receive the support that they need or desire?
Well, it's been really, really great. And I kind of do feel like we've built a building too, that when I first started, I mentioned being on part of the counseling staff. There was a shift. The head of school, Doug Hale, when he came, he wanted to have the counseling staff be called the counseling department. And so it was a department, a separate department, just like English department, math department, and have a location in the health center. And so that was a big shift. And that's when I became the director of counseling. And we had some rooms in the old health center building before it was renovated. And it was, not really always working, but it was definitely great that the students could know that it was a separate department separated from the administration, because the counseling staff used to report to the associate head of school earlier. And this was a complete change and really honoring and recognizing the mind-body connection that counseling is, that sometimes when there's something wrong, we might feel it physically. And so there's a lot of interplay between physical health and mental health, and to sort of destigmatize it. And I have been amazed at how students have been able to, reach out for help on their own and come and seek support, especially people that maybe never have done that before. And I've always felt like it's the hugest triumph in life to just be able to be yourself. And am always so privileged to be with students when they're able to show me in a counseling session who they really are and what they're experiencing in those moments. So I did have to advocate pretty hard, though, to help push the school, and I've been so grateful that they did renovate the health center building. And there was talk of, like, should we have the counseling center in there? Should it be a separate building somewhere closer to campus? But in the end, we didn't want to break up that mind-body connection idea. And so I'm just so proud of the work that the students have done for coming in there, and the work that we've done with them. It's just always a privilege to watch kids graduate when I know how hard they've worked to get there. But I do long for the counseling center that's within the Rutherford Health and Wellness Center to be up and running again.
Yeah, hopefully soon. I really appreciate what you say, though, about the courage. Even our greatest triumph is just to be ourselves and be comfortable in that way. I think that's really, really well said. We're going to transition to some questions for all of you. So if Laurie and Tom, you want to join us on screen, that'd be great. So this is actually a question that I had, but Mrs. Senora Hawk's class had as well. And just a reminder to please throw your questions into the Q&A. We'll get to those in just 1 second. So please start throwing those in there. But what has been the biggest change? This is the question from them that I had as well. What's the biggest change that's happened in your time here at Mercersburg Academy? What do you think the biggest change is? Feel free just to jump in. I'm not going to call you guys here, so just jump right in.
I was just going to say the technology, I think, has made a huge change in how things work and student experience. Some for the wonderful advancement, and also some not so good with the social media sometimes.
That's what I would say as well. I think the technology piece has really changed, and I don't think that's just germane to Mercersburg. I think that's worldwide. But I think that's been the biggest change that I've seen as well, and the good and the bad with it as well.
I think for me, one of the things that I've seen is really the evolution of attitudes of acceptance that I don't think were as broad and kind when I first got here. And I think that that's really a beautiful thing to see opening up and flowering, and the acceptance of who each of us are as human beings rather than labels.
Wonderful. This was once again another question I had, but we had someone ask as well. What's something that you're gonna miss about Mercersburg Academy after the end of this academic year?
The people, for sure, and the beautiful landscape, and just that energy, and just so many people that I admire and love. The work. It's a privilege.
Yeah, it's such a joy to be around the young people, and of course now everybody's younger than I am, but it's really a wonderful thing to be in an atmosphere where there's so much positive energy and youthful playfulness with all sorts of ways that really creates a wonderful sort of vibe, and you have the faculty that are in the same sort of mode, and that's a wonderful thing, and people tend to be very giving and vulnerable and wonderful about what they give to the community, and I know I will miss that a great deal, as well as the beauty of the place.
For me, I know I'm not going to be far away, but not being within the world or within the bubble of this place that is really so special, and that you can just, run into somebody as you're walking across campus and you have a connection, and seeing students work and flourish. Even like we haven't had the dining hall this year, and missing that way of connecting with each other, to me is like a microcosm of that's not going to be at my fingertips, this beautiful place. That one, it's going to take work to stay connected to the people and friends who I have made over the 23 years for me that I've been here. I also have directed a play, at least one play, if not two or three, every year since 1976. So for me, the idea of what's my next project, I have really trying to think about, okay, what are my next projects going to be? And I decided one of the things I want to do, even though I probably can't come in and bug Mr. Gray, because I've never had a chance to do this, is I have always wanted to learn how to throw pots. So, I've got to find a way, to throw pots. And I haven't been able to take a modern dance class with Miss Dalton, but that movement, that way of dancing is really important to me in my life. And I haven't been able to do it for a really long time. So I've got to figure out how I can do those things and think about, I'm not learning outside to bring back here anymore. So I've got to figure out how to, where that's all that energy is going to go.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
Will, Will, the other thing, I use the word faculty, but I mean that collectively more as the adults, because there are so many people, Laurie Rice, Jill Hoover, Kim Richards, who have been such wonderful friends and support people across my time here, and people that are no longer here, some who are no longer with us. I mean, those are people that, all of those people, I know I will miss tremendously. They've been just instrumental and integral in my happiness here. And Randy Campbell, Skip Sidner. I mean, just great people, great people.
We are so blessed in that regard with the people that we work with. We've had some questions coming in. I want to take one or two of those before we kind of come to our time. Senora Hawk was very quick to ask, Senor Rahauser, how did you know you wanted to teach Spanish?
Well, I got interested in Spanish in high school. Actually, here at the academy, I had a teacher that was really, I had a couple of teachers who were great. And then I continued to take it in college, and it just interested me, and I enjoyed it. It was challenging, but a beautiful challenge. And I loved it very much. And I wasn't sure, just graduating from college, that it was what I was going to do forever. I mean, you just don't know, but I knew I'd at least try and see what happened. And I knew I wanted to be involved with coaching, I thought. And so the two of them seemed to go together. You have to almost do that at a school, at least at that time. There weren't many people in schools that were coming in from outside and working in schools. It was more the teachers who were in a high school or, school like this. So I sort of had to just fall into it, get maybe kicked into it, but that's how I kind of knew.
Yeah.
I didn't really know.
Yeah, I think that's one thing when at least, you realize as you get older, there's a lot of things you don't know that you figure out in those ways, that it's amazing how, when you look back, how they all fit in places that you never expected in that regard. So we'll end on a controversial but sweet note. This is for everyone. Is it chocolate chip cookie pie or pretzel pie that is the superior dessert here at Mercersburg Academy?
For me, pretzel pie.
Same here. It's just not quite as sweet as the chocolate chip cookie pie, which is very good too.
I am in agreement.
Wow, I don't know if we've ever gone 3 for 3 on that question before. We can't say thank you enough for sharing this insight and this wisdom at this time. I wish we were all together so we could give you guys a standing ovation, not only for what was a really insightful panel, but for the contributions you've made to all of our lives in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's the development of the mental health center, the development of a building, or how you've, for Tom, how you helped shape our experiences as the Dean of Students and as a long-term faculty member. You've all played a role in some way, shape, or form in how we experience this place. And I can't say thank you enough. I speak for all of us when I say thank you for all those things. So thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
As we conclude today, I do want to bring out the fact that these are not the only members of our community who are retiring at the end of this year. In fact, we have 9 members of faculty and staff who are retiring. So I want to take a moment to honor them as well. As many of you know, Herr Kempa is departing after 27 years at Mercersburg Academy. Rita Barone, the director of the Health Center, served in our Health and Wellness Center for over 27 years as a nurse and in other roles before becoming the director of the Health Center. Jill Hoover joined the Mercersburg Academy the same, I have pictures here, I apologize. That's Rita, my apologies. Jill Hoover joined Mercersburg Academy the same year as Mr. Rahauser and has served in our alumni office and in the academic office with a total of 43 years of service to our academy. Georgia Price also served in various roles in different departments for her 22 years at Mercersburg Academy, and she'll retire. She's been the manager, the accounts payable manager in our business office for many years. Barb Myers is retiring after 19 years of service in our alumni office. It is estimated that Barb has entered more than 80,000 gifts records to Mercersburg Academy during her time here. And finally, Susan Seymour retired this past fall after 32 years in the admissions office. I think we could probably all share a story of a time where Mrs. Seymour greeted us as one of our first people who greeted us here at Mercersburg Academy. In total, our 9 retirees have served over 260 years combined for Mercersburg Academy. And I speak for all of us when I say thank you. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for the efforts to make a better community. And thank you for caring for us as individuals during this time period. All 9 of these people have helped shape this place in positive ways, and we would not be the school we are without them. So we're all so grateful for your service. I want to take that moment just to honor all of those people. I'd ask that if you see these people around campus, please say thank you to them in person as well.